Manchester United have themselves a new manager, Ruben Amorim, who has of course left Sporting Lisbon to replace Erik ten Hag. Today I'm going to be stepping into the vacancy left by Amorim at Sporting and creating a new tactic based on the 3-4-3 foundations that have been laid by Amorim before he moved to Manchester United. So here we have Ruben Amorim's FM24 tactic built. I shall go through it role by role. So we have Gyökeres at the top, pressing forward and attack. I think this just depicts exactly what Gyökeres would do. You could argue complete forward because he would occasionally hold up the ball, but I think a pressing forward accurately depicts how urgently he would press. The two tens, kind of similar to how Thomas Tuchel does it actually, but one kind of wider and one a bit narrower, but both with sit narrower and roaming from the position. Trincao starts a bit wider because he is that kind of player. He's more of a winger, whereas Goncalves is a kind of a natural 10. But Trincao definitely would sit in here most of the game, and out of possession he would definitely be sitting inside. You've then got the wing backs. Santos is a complete wing back on attack, which has the hard-coded player position of stay wider. So this is because Goncalves is always inside. You'd never really see Goncalves out on the touchline, so Santos would be up here. However, on the other side, Fresneda is just a wing back on attack because you don't want him to have stay wider. This is because Trincao would often drift wide to this wing because he's a wider player, and that would mean Fresneda would come inside here. Although more often than not, you are going to see Trincao narrow and Fresneda then pushing on, kind of looking like this. Then at the back, you would have Berganca would be like a DLP on support, and you'd have Hjulmand as a defensive midfielder on support. Berganca, deep line playmaker, just your generic player, comes and gets the ball to the back line, plays expansive passes, drives the ball up the field, exactly what he did. Hjulmand, as you can see, has the shoot from distance trait. It's something he does in real life, so a defensive midfielder and defender wouldn't really get him on the edge of the box, where he likes to take those long shots. And then the back line would rarely be completely static like this. Normally one of them would play like this, like the Bast would step up, which will allow Berganca to be a regista, meaning he goes a bit more aggressive, or you'd have Inacio like this, allowing Berganca to step up a bit more. Or if you wanted a bit more physicality in and around the box, you could have Diomande as a wide centre-back on support, meaning Hjulmand would play like a volante and just push up a bit more, and then Berganca would drop a little bit deeper in there, so you had a bit more solidity. So there are the roles and the shape. Now we'll quickly go through the instructions. The width is fairly wide. You could maybe put that on wide, kind of depends on the game. Always play out from the fence, work ball into the box is always the case, as is low crosses, because the whole overarching aim of this system is to get these wing backs to the touchline and get loads of cutbacks, high XG chance into Gyökeres, or you play little cute balls in from the number 10s behind the defensive line. Gyökeres is one-on-one. That was the whole goal of this system, create as many high expected goal chances for Gyökeres as possible. So the directness of the passing, game dependent. I have it on much shorter. You could put it on shorter, and same with the tempo. You could drop it by one. You could go like this. You could go like that, like that, like that. Any combination really. But I'd say these two, play out of defence, and at least fairly wide, are all kind of set in stone. Run at defence, be more expressive. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 very creative players. Your centre backs would always be expansive. You don't really want them to be disciplined. You're looking for creative players in this system. Transitions, like any good tactic in FM, to be honest, counter press, counter, dispute quickly, centre backs, take short kicks. Again, you could just have this on whatever, but I'll put it on short kicks. Then when you're out of possession, ultra aggressive, stepping up, getting stuck in. You might have watched them against Man City the other week where they looked a bit more like this, but that's against Man City. No one's playing like this. No one's playing a line like this against Man City. It just doesn't happen. I don't know why. Like this against Man City. It doesn't happen. But most games, like if you look at this league, most of these teams are not going to be posing that much of a threat in behind. Like if we look at these lot, for example, who's their striker? Is this guy? 12 finishing, no mental ability whatsoever. I used to play for Sporting, but you see where I'm coming from. So in the league, they would always have this really high, aggressive line. However, one of the big problems for Sporting is keeping hold of their players, especially as many of them stayed over the summer when they had interest shown in them, likely because of Amorim's influence over the squad. So one of the biggest players which has been touted to leave is Gyökeres, and that's where I think, if we pretend he isn't here, this whole system falls apart. The backup striker is this guy down here called Conrad Harder, and he is nowhere near as good. He's 18 years old, he has potential to grow, but, you can see the profile's nothing like Gyökeres. So, I think my kind of take on it is to play a system more like this. So what you have here is a slight change in the system. So rather than creating loads of high XG chances for your one striker, the goal here is that your striker drops away from the back line and sends your two number 10s running in behind. Because if we look at Goncalves, his profile as a player is very much suited to the shadow striker role. You can see he has excellent finishing ability, excellent off the ball. He's fast enough to do it, good technique. Arguably, looking at those stats, you would say in Football Manager his best position is as a striker, other than his strength, but you could definitely make an argument for it. Your other number 10, Marcus Edwards, again, as a shadow striker, this one, he'd be a little less direct. He's a very technical player, he likes to dribble a lot. You'd make all of these roam, you'd have all of them interchanging. So you've basically got like 3 number 10s all rotating around on the edge of the box, with Santos and Fresneda holding the width, like usual, all the way out here. And then you'd have Braganza, who I would like to step up and kind of sit just behind these 10s and dictate the play. And then behind that, you'd step up Inacio. And you'd step Inacio into the midfield, or Bast or Diamande. And there has, as you might rightly point out, been a lot of interest in these players. But the Bast is new, he's not going anywhere. So the Bast, look at his profile again, is so definitely capable of stepping up. His best attribute is his passing. He's a very technical player, good vision, good first touch. He's a good player, he can do it. So he can step up into the midfield, which means these two players can really be anybody. They have Luis Neto and, for example, Jeremiah St. Just. St. Just is a brilliant defender in this system because, say we lose the ball from Fresneda, he's all the way up there. The Bas can drop back in, Braganca can get back in, and then, Sennis is their winger. They're bombing down here. St. Just can go out wide, and because of his incredible pace and physical ability, he's not going to get rinsed. There aren't many players that can do that. And I didn't mean Neto. I meant Rafael. Rafael is, 20 years old. Well, he's 21 in real life, but in FM he's 20. As you can see here, good physicality, good on the ball presence. He's a like-for-like replacement for Inacio, really, just not as good. Which is why I think the Bast is the one that should be stepping into midfield, because he's not going anywhere. The instructions are very much the same, and I've gone for wide to stretch that backline as much as possible to make as much space for these number 10s, playing out of defence, working it into the box, low crosses, because the tallest player here is 6 foot exactly, with 9 heading ability, and that's the best we've got, so we're not going to be crossing the ball. Much shorter passing, of higher tempo, lots of technical tiki-taka passes between these three, Braganca, the wingers, even Hulmand and De Bast are definitely capable of that. And then we're running at the defence, we're being expressive, because that's exactly what you want. In transition, counter-pressing, counter-attacking, distributing it quickly and taking short kicks. And out of possession, just ultra-aggressive against any team, even in Football Manager. Like, you played Man City, you would go for this ultra-aggressive style. Just because of, that's how the most broken tactics in FM work. This is how I would adapt Sporting's tactics without Amorim and without Gyökeres. Also, Diamande not in the system, Inacio not in, Morita can come in for Hulmand, so you can afford to lose, Gyökeres, Hjulmand, Inacio, Diomande, all very expensive, very in-demand players. But what we also haven't considered here is you'd get, 150, 200 million pounds for this. So then you can buy players who can step into the system now rather than relying on someone like Raphael who's only 21 years old. And you can buy more defenders who can step up. You can buy, another creative six. You can buy, if you really want to, you don't even have to adapt this. You can go back to this one and just buy a new physical number 9 like Gyökeres. It obviously won't be as good as Gyökeres, but you can buy someone with a similar profile. That's why I think Sporting are really, really well set up. And even though they've lost Amorim and went on to lose, I think it was 5-1 to Arsenal last week, I really do think they're going to be an excellent Portuguese side going forward. And whoever inherits this squad and tries to adapt their way of playing has a lot of options with the players they have. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. It will hopefully be the first video on my channel. If there's any other teams or tactical systems you'd like me to recreate in FM or adapt, any kind of football manager ideas you'd like to see, please feel free to suggest them and I'll respond to as many of them as possible.